I say things were slowing up, but actually things were pretty lively at the moot point this Saturday night. Anyway, Rachel and Jacob had had taken the opportunity to go outside, and I'll tell you what went on there in just a minute. But now back to the newcomer, Duke of War, Ludd. he he was what was going on in his head when he said when Elaine explained about Gaia. Well, it got worse actually. Let me tell you about that first. Uh, it was the schoolmarm. Gladys said, "Well, you know what Gaia could be doing there? Have you ever heard of? Well, she wouldn't have said Yuns. Have you people, you all ever heard of Johann Sebastian Bach?" And yeah, they nodded their heads. Yeah, yeah. And she said, "Well, you know what he used to write on all his manuscripts? He'd write Soli Deo Gloria, uh, which was Latin for to God alone goes the glory." And I see Gaia there as being a little bit like that. You know, the rest of the words aren't there, but whoever wrote this wanted to make sure that Gaia was included. Well, that's the kind of stuff that just set Duke off. He didn't say anything out loud, but he was thinking to himself, "Oh God, damn it, Jesus Christ!" That's what he was going on in his head, because he is or was whatever a militant atheist. He couldn't stand it. He couldn't be quiet when people talked about religion and God and stuff. He thought it was all nonsense, and so that was going on in his head. But he didn't say anything. He was being polite. Now for sticking with him, Omar said to him, "Duke, you look great. How come you came tonight? It's the first time you ever came." And Duke said, "Well, I've been wanting to come because I helped to build this, and I wanted to support you, but I just thought, I hadn't better be in the same space at the same time with Big Bubba. There would be bound to be trouble." Part of Duke was a fighter. He wouldn't have stood a chance against Big Bubba, but to a true fighter, whether you win or lose, you're going to fight, because he really didn't like him. Well, all right. Outside, Rachel and Jacob, they held hands. They were loving and stuff, and they looked to the southwest, and there was no ignoring it. Now there was flashes of lightning, and this wasn't just distant heat lightning. It looked like a storm was coming, which was, they hoped so, because of course, being Mennonites, they were closely attached to the farming community, and the farmers were getting worried. This was getting pretty darn dry. It was August, but end of August, but it was really dry, and they needed rain really bad, so they were hoping, and it really looked like there was going to be a heck of a storm coming, which was good. Now, it was Rachel that said to Jacob, "You know what Elaine said about Gaia? Did you ever hear of Gaia?" And Jacob said, "No, but I understand that some people have different names for God. I understand that." And Elaine said, or not Elaine, Rachel said, "Well, I understand that too." And Elaine seemed to really care. What I'm getting at, she's talking to her boyfriend. Do you think we should invite her to come to our fellowship tomorrow? Tomorrow's Sunday. Do you think she might come? She cares about God and seems to care about religion. She might like it. And Jacob said, "Yeah, if you tell her how she should dress in order to be comfortable, and what's the harm in it?" So they resolved that they would do that, and they were soon going to go back in. All right, now back inside, what all's going on? Well, they're going and looking through that list and working on trying to see what they could come up with. And somebody said, well, what you should probably do is start taking these words and putting them together and Google them as a pair and see what you come up with. Or even three of the words together and see what you come up with. And that didn't seem like a bad idea. And, you know, I'm not so sure if Edgy had thought of that or not, but he was jotting stuff down. That was a pretty good idea. And now, I'm sorry. The school marm, Gladys, she suddenly thought of something. She said, "You know what you've got there? Let's not forget those pieces of silk. You know what you've got? That piece of paper, those two pieces of paper. You've got a pattern. That's a pattern. If you put that on the right material and punch holes, you're going to be able to get pieces of something." And she asked if anyone remembered when you could get a dress, patterns for making a dress in an envelope, and you'd lay it on cloth, and nobody remembered that. You know, she sighed and said, whatever happened to great dressmaking? But anyway, she said, that's what that is. That's a pattern. And that's and I'll bet if you lay that out there, you're going to see that you could make a lot of rectangles. Maybe they're boards. Maybe it's they will build it out of. Now it doesn't say wood, but who knows what it is? But that's what it is. And those little Roman numerals, she'd been inspired. She said, "I'll bet that's the number of those pieces that you need." And the guy who did this, Wedge, is that what his name is? He used Roman numerals because they could be connected with straight lines as opposed to Arabic numerals, which wouldn't have worked with the pattern. This was making so much sense. And Duke, at that point, he was figuring out what was going on too. He picked up pretty quick, and he said, "And you know that shorter piece of paper? You know what that could be? That could be patterns for making a trestle. Isn't that on that list? Trestle, because that's like a sawhorse, and you know they don't need pieces any longer than about 4 feet. And if you look on there, I wouldn't be surprised if there's a 2 somewhere." Duke was inspired too, because one trestle doesn't do you much good. You kind of have to have 2. Well, I'll tell you what, people were impressed, and once again they were all getting excited. About now it got to be time. I wanted to tell you one other thing about Duke. You know, Omar was teasing him about how he looks so spit and polished with the shiny shoes and dressed up like that. And he says, "You just remind me of those guys that were chasing Harrison Ford in the movie Witness. Do any of you ever see Witness?" And they remembered when the guys had the shiny shoes, stepped in the cow shit, and so anyway, but Rachel and Rachael and Jacob, you know, said goodbye to Freund, and that was their excuse. And actually, they did want to check on her, and you know, noticed again that the thunder and lightning was getting closer, and then they headed back inside.